What's going on, fight fans? It's your boy C-Dub with the Standing 8 Count Boxing. Now, tonight we're circling back and taking another look at this Conor Benn, Eddie Hearn, Vada fiasco that took place, that began last month. Now, for those of you that don't know, on October 8th, 2022, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. were scheduled for a mega fight at a catch weight of 157, which meant that Conor Benn, normally he's a welterweight, 147, had to come up 10 pounds. And Chris Eubank Jr., he is a middleweight. He had to come down 3 pounds at the catch weight of 157. Now, Conor Benn, his father, or excuse me, Chris Eubank Jr., his father, Chris Eubank Sr., has been very vocal, or he was very vocal in the media, begging everybody to boycott the fight and the fight shouldn't go on. And the reason being was because he said at the time that he felt that because Chris Eubank Jr. Was 33 years old, that 3 pound weight cut was just too much for him. Coupled with the fact that there was also a rehydration clause in their contract, which prohibited Chris Eubank Jr. from hydrating past a certain weight. So his father, Chris Eubank Sr., he expressed a lot of concern that the weight cut was too much at Eubank Jr.'s age, not to mention it would leave him vulnerable because of the weight cut and because of the dehydration and because of the lack of fluid in his body, would leave him very susceptible to head injuries in the ring. And nobody could really understand why Eubank Sr. had such strong thoughts. I mean, yeah, we understand that, as a father, you want to make sure that your kids are safe. But at the same time, Chris Eubank Jr., he's been fighting for a long time. He's a good fighter. He knows what to do in the ring. Well, come to find out, the Wednesday before the fight was supposed to happen, it came out that Conor Benn had popped dirty for a banned substance. On the side of VADA. Now, for those of you that don't know, VADA is the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. And in contrast, you have UKAD, which is the United Kingdom Anti-Doping Association. Now, VADA is said to be the most restrictive testing out. Now, they're just a third-party dope collection agency. However, everyone's general feeling is that VADA should be the top dog. It is they should get the final say as far as what is banned and what isn't banned, who's clean and who isn't clean. Well, come to find out that Conor Benn had previously popped dirty for a banned substance. I think it was I'm not sure exactly what he popped dirty for. I don't know the exact name, but I do know that it ended up being a women's fertility drug that boosts testosterone in men. I believe it's clomiphene, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, once this came out, this was just a media circus. I mean, this came out the Wednesday before the fight. The fight was scheduled that Saturday, October 8th. This came out, Conor Benn ended up popping dirty, and the fight was canceled that Wednesday, which brings us to Eddie Hearn. Now, when this first came out, Eddie Hearn was on the side of Conor Benn. He went on record to say that he was going to explore his options, which basically meant he was going to look for a different sanctioning body if the BBBFC decided that they were not going to put on the fight. Now, for whatever reason, that did not happen. There was no injunction. Eddie Hearn did not actually do anything to get the fight put back on. But the fact that he went on record to say that he was going to seek other avenues to get this fight to happen, even though he knew that Conor Benn had popped dirty, kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, especially with Eddie Hearn's having such strong feelings in the past about boxers that pop dirty. Actually, let's take a listen and see how Eddie Hearn viewed. Now this is before. Now this interview is way before the Conor Benn situation. But let's go back and let's listen to what Eddie Hearn had to say in regards to fighters that end up popping dirty. Let's listen.
Waste of time. These guys, if they're cheating, they're breaking cycles. They know exactly what they're doing. Cheating in boxing is not like cheating in the Tour de France. It's not like cheating at 100 meters. The aim of boxing is to, exactly, and to do that illegally or to enhance that performance. I'm not talking about banning fighters. I'm talking about imprisoning people who do that. Some fighters get caught and they've been unlucky, but ultimately you are responsible for your sample. So anyone that gets caught is guilty.
Now what you guys now what you guys just heard was Eddie Hearn pretty much condemning all fighters that failed drug tests prior to competing in the ring. Now it didn't sound like it mattered who the promoter was. If you pop dirty, you were guilty. That's what Eddie Hearn said. Now with Conor Benn, the difference is Conor Benn is Eddie Hearn's fighter. So when Eddie Hearn found out that Conor Benn had popped dirty for the second time, for him to go on record to say, well, he's going to look for other governing bodies, and he's going to see what he can do to file an injunction to try to get the fight to go on, even though Conor Benn popped dirty, was a direct contradiction to what he said when it wasn't when it wasn't his fighter that popped dirty. Now, the interview that you just heard, that was around the time when Canelo Alvarez popped dirty for banned substance clenbuterol was found in his system. Now, of course, Canelo Alvarez maintained his innocence. He said it was due to meat contamination and food contamination, things like that. And he was even required to show proof of everything that he had eaten in his nutrition plan and get affidavits from farmers and different things like that to prove his innocence. But the fact that Eddie Hearn was not willing to completely stand on his square and stand on the fact that he condemned all fighters that pop dirty is a complete contradiction, and that in and of itself is the reason why Eddie Hearn received so much backlash in the media and in the boxing community, because it was a complete contradiction. And look at what we're talking about. We're talking about fighters having an unfair advantage in a sport where the object is to beat the other guy senseless. That's something that just can't happen. That can't be tolerated, regardless if you are in the 11th hour and it is the Wednesday before the fight, and you did spend millions of dollars promoting the fight. That didn't matter, as he said in a previous interview. Now, of course, the interview wasn't with standing 8-count boxing, but he, as he stated, he wasn't worried about. He wanted the Algieri fight, but Algieri popped dirty. I'm sorry, he wanted the Billy Joe Saunders fight. Billy Joe Saunders popped dirty, and he felt that his fighter was put in danger, and he didn't want to do anything. He was criticized in the media for being neutral, but he said out of his own mouth he didn't want to influence the board. But now that it's his fighter, Conor Benn, he didn't care about influencing the board. He was more concerned about the fight going on, the fight continuing to be put on, even though Conor Benn popped dirty, even though that could have put Chris Eubank Jr., his life, at risk.
Actually, Callie, what we can do is we can hear from the other side, because Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, we've just been given a statement. Callie, we thank you for your time, Callie. Stay with us as I'll bring you this statement from Matchroom. We've been made aware that a random anti-doping test for Conor Benn conducted by the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association returned an adverse analytical finding for trace amounts of a fertility drug. The B sample is yet to be tested, meaning that no rule violation has been confirmed. Indeed, Mr. Benn has not been charged with any rule violation. He is not suspended and he remains free to fight. Mr. Benn has since passed a doping control test conducted by the UK Anti-Doping Agency, the Anti-Doping Authority, to which the British Boxing Board of Control has delegated its doping control testing for the bout. Mr. Benn has passed all doping control tests conducted by UCAD. Both fighters have taken medical and legal advice. They are aware of all relevant information and wish to proceed with the bout this Saturday.
No one's criticising your loyalty or your belief in Conor Benn. Something you have been criticised for, and I include myself in this, is still trying to make the Eubank Junior show go ahead, despite the board being against it, whether you believe Conor's innocent or not.
When you say that, how did we do that?
Well, you talked about the possibility in interviews of injunctions and...
Because the reason being, Danny, is we received that news probably 45 minutes before we arrived at the workout, right? When I had a million cameras in my face. And you have to understand that the board had this information, the same time we had it, weeks before, right? During that period, all of our costs were incurred, right? So it was like, we were incredibly frustrated that on the Wednesday before the fight, all of a sudden, and they leaked it to the media, right? We just felt like we've almost been fucked. Like, why didn't you cancel this fight when all the information was presented to you? And then we would never have been in this situation. So I do accept that probably the mistake I made was to give an interview to say we're considering our options. But to say that I tried to get the fight to go ahead is not true once the board's decision made. Because if I did, I would have gone for an injunction or I would have used another commission. And we did neither. And ultimately, I sat down after that workout with Wasserman and we sort of said, we got, this is right, we got to do this. We didn't try for an injunction. We didn't try to use another commission. So we never tried to get the fight to go ahead. We let the board make their decision. Now, again, I wish they would have made it sooner because it would have saved me 500 or 600 grand, but also it would have saved me people criticising me for saying, you wanted the fight to go ahead. We're not the regulatory body. The board will decide whether the fight goes ahead. Now, with Eubank comfortable and the board choosing to go ahead, would we have gone ahead? Contractually, we can't stop the fight.
So it sounds to me like if it's cool with UCAD and it's cool with the BBBFC, then Eddie Hearn has no problem with his fighter popping dirty. So for him to go on record and say that, I was just upset, which is why I wanted the fight to go on. It was the cameras were just in my face, and I hadn't had time to digest all the information and figure out what was the best course of action. That's BS. I mean, dirty's dirty is dirty, right? So if a fighter pops dirt, if you felt if it's not your fighter and they pop dirty and you felt that, well, if they pop dirty, they're guilty. Now that it's your fighter, well, now there's all this equity that needs to be taken into account. What did UCAD say? What did the BBBFC have to say? That's kind of that muddies the waters quite a bit. You see, now here's where things get interesting. On October 21st, the BBBFC, they held a hearing to address the allegations of misconduct by Conor Benn, which Conor Benn did not bother to show up. He just sent his legal representation. At that time, Conor Benn's boxing license had lapsed, and because he was under such scrutiny, and he felt that he was getting an unfair and a biased treatment by the BBBFC, he simply decided to relinquish his boxing license. Now, this is reminiscent of Tyson Fury. and how he handled his dirty drug test. See, if you remember, Tyson Fury, he popped dirty for a banned substance, and he maintained his innocence by claiming, once again, contamination of his food. They said he ate, I guess, uncastrated wild boar. And just like Canelo, he had to go and he had to get all of this proof of his nutrition plan, and then the farmers that raised the boar, and the farmers had to come and testify on his behalf, only to later come out that the farmer had been paid 25,000 euro to testify on Tyson Fury's behalf. As a matter of fact, the farmer went on to say that he didn't even raise wild boar, castrated or uncastrated, on his land. So, I mean, for Conor Benn to relinquish his boxing license kind of gave him a loophole, because if you don't have a BBBFC sanctioned boxing license, you're no longer under the jurisdiction of UCAD and the BBBFC, which means that all fines go away. Well, they don't go away, but that you don't, I mean, you're not under their jurisdiction. So Conor Benn wouldn't have to pay any of them. All drug testing stops. Any bans that will be passed down by the BBBFC. Well, if you don't have a license, you're not a boxer, so they can't ban you from fighting. The only thing that Conor Benn would have to do is just find another sanctioning body, and probably the United States, to sanction some of his upcoming fights. And it would just be a matter of time before all of these charges are forgotten about. So, I mean, all of this, I mean, this is just a whole big fiasco, surrounding all this dope testing, and ultimately you're playing with people's lives. I'm gonna say it again. You don't play boxing. So for somebody to come in there on performance enhancing drugs the night of the fight, I mean, that can really end up being a tragic situation, especially coming off of last Saturday's tragic news that Adios, I think that's how you pronounce his name, your Bossinelli. I'm gonna call him the ball. Your boss, Bossinelli. I've been butchering this guy's name for a while now, but he's injury sustained in the ring against with his bout against David Morrell. Left him on the operating table. This last Monday, he had to undergo brain surgery, and I'll be dropping another video about that. So be sure you stay on the lookout for that. But this is boxing. We're playing with people's lives. So for UCAD to have one list and VADA to have another list of banned substances, it's just a matter of time before this thing goes completely the wrong way. So for Eddie Hearn to go on record to say that he feels like he got the shaft because he had to deal with such scrutiny in the media and he felt it was undeserved, I think now we can kind of see that it was very much so deserved, especially with your inconsistency as far as your views, Eddie, on dope testing in the boxing world. But I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. So make sure you drop a comment in the comment section, hit that like button and subscribe, smash that bell icon for all future notifications. As always, it's your boy C-Dub with the Standing 8 Count Boxing. I want to thank y'all for rocking with me, and until next time, peace.